Check. Check. Hello, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Welcome to our Saturday live stream. Looks like we've got a lively little group already. Hello to everyone. Hello, Leia and Blondie. Hello, El Gusto. It looks like Lou might be here. Hello, everyone. And Osiris. Hi, Osiris. Am I a bit quiet? That's weird. Let me adjust a little bit here. Maybe that ought to help things a little bit. I don't know. I've been having some mic issues lately, and I'm not really sure what to do about it. I've got to get a new wire, probably. If you guys hear it start to crackle, you let me know, because it's been doing that a lot lately. Probably. Welcome everyone to our second week of Halloween Spectacular. I'm glad you guys could make it. Let's see. I'm going to announce the winners of our contest. I don't want to devalue anybody's story. They were both very good stories. Like, I don't want this to be a slight against anybody. But the winners were Leia and Bev, who were our only two entry people. But they wrote some really fine stories. Like, these were really good stories. And I enjoyed both of them. Like, we only had two entries, though, so honestly, it was too close to call. They both had really good stories. And I'll be reading both of them on the channel next week for our Tuesday and Thursday story. So I'll get with you guys individually. Prepare to get some books, I reckon, if you want them. I'll let you pick out which ones you want. But, yay to Leia and Bev for writing some really killer stories. Both of you guys really turned up for Halloween. Like, those were really good stories. Let's see. This week, we've got some more Halloween cozy horror, like we did last week. Trying to think what else we got going on. We've got more Halloween Spooktacular, which we will be reading tonight, which will be the second half of our Kashmir Halloween. Lot of stories to meld together there, so I think you guys will like where I went with it, though. Should be an interesting time. Let's see if I've got any new business. I think we're going to skip the November writing contest, and we will have another one in December. I don't know. I've tried before. It's really hard to make Thanksgiving a horrific experience. Like, about all I really have to do is turkeys there. But, we'll probably do another one for some Christmas horror, and then that'll close us out for the season on writing contests. And then next year we'll do some more cool stuff. Probably next week, the first week of November, or the week of November, first week of November. So like week after next. I'm going to take my annual week off, so it'll be cozy horror and There'll probably be some long form stories. It should be fun, but there won't be any new content that week. I'm helping my brother set up his YouTube channel as well, and I'm going to be working on a lot of different stuff. So I usually take the week after Halloween off. It's such a busy time. I need a chance to decompress, But I think that Saturday, though, we're going to do a new Choose Your Own Adventure. So be sure that you are there for that one. That should be... Oh no, wait, that's next week, the 31st. On the 1st of November, so the Saturday, we'll do a Choose Your Own Adventure. So be sure to be here next week for that. That should be a lot of fun. I've got some ideas that I'm kicking around, but I think I've got some good stuff there. But any rate, I think that's about all we've got. I hope you guys saw my chicken pen that I built. I know it's a little bit lopsided. It's Florida, man. Like, the ground is a little bit uneven out there. But, you know, I think my chickens will enjoy living in it once they get here. Silence my phones. Let's mess with us. Alrighty. Let's see. I'm thinking about doing a choose your own adventure werewolf story this time, so that could be fun. You know, I've got a couple of ideas I'm kicking around, but I think that's the one I'm going to land on. So should be a good time. Make sure you're here for that. Let me sit up so that I don't get all gravelly here. Adjust my mic a little bit. There we go. Yeah, as you can see, I had to tape the bottom end to keep it in. I really need a new cord. I'm going to have to get to Best Buy or something. Or order one off of Amazon, I suppose. So if it starts to crackle, you guys let me know so that I can fix it. Get everything all prepped up here. Before I read scary stories on the internet, I always put on my Duke Cannon's brand lip balm. Duke Cannon, send me some money. Anyway, let's see here. Going to get everything set up here, and then we are going to rock and roll. See if we get chat bombed again tonight. That was interesting. Everybody loves a good werewolf story. Okay, so, as some of you will recall, oh God, there was a lot going on. There was Halloween preparation at the Botanical Gardens. Sheriff Guthrie was arguing with the ghost of Sheriff Masterson, as he usually does this time of year. Earl and Candace had gone out on their date, and they were sharing secrets. So now we know that So now we know that Candace is a werewolf, and that, you know, Earl talks to dead people, which we already knew. Hey there, Lady Rider. We're glad you could make it. I've got to get a new cord. This is unacceptable. Let's see. Then, Corey, who works at the black site in town, decided to attempt to take her out, which he's been tailing her for a while, and ended up real dead. So Candace has escaped out into the Stragview, or the woods that surround her house and Stragview. I think. Oh yeah, Grandpa and Marcus have decided to go out after Grandpa hears the call of something in the woods, and Dr. Winters is also wandering around in the woods too. The warden is going to join them in the woods, I suppose. He had left for the woods last time. I think that's it. I think that's... like I said, we got a lot going story-wise here. But it wouldn't be a Kashmir Halloween if we didn't have a lot of threads to unravel there. Hello, Nermal. Hey, Winters. Good to see you. We're glad you could make it. Hang on a second. Check. 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 Alright. Trying to minimize the crackle some there. Anyway, so, close, Blondie, close. We're going on a different song there, though. So, today we are going to pick up where we left off, and this one is called Over the River. So, I hope you enjoy it. Sheriff Guthrie, this is a terrible idea. Hey, good to see ya. I'm doing pretty good. Oh, goodness, Nermal. Somebody is not going to let recordings get in the way of his pets, I suppose. Sheriff Guthrie slid the pump shotgun out of the trunk of his cruiser. It was one of the new ones, the bullpup that he had had to fight for during the budgetary reviews this summer. The council wanted to know why he needed a riot gun in a sleepy little town like this, but Sheriff Guthrie supposed that this was exactly why he needed something like that. If he was going to go into the woods to hunt a creature, then he would have rather taken a missile launcher than this stubby little thing. He supposed beggars could not be choosers, though. At least let us come with you. Going in there by yourself would be a death sentence. Deputy Parks and Deputy Woods were trying to talk him out of going into the forest, but there wasn't a lot they could do to dissuade him. His options were limited, and if there was something that big and that dangerous roaming around this close to Kashmir, then Guthrie needed to take care of it. It was also possible, unlikely, but possible, that he might find Candace in time to save her. Every moment he hesitated would be another moment that those chances might slip away from him. But he had to at least try. He needed to bring her body out, if nothing else. Earl could be a headache sometimes, but he owed him that much. You two are to stay out here and mind the shop while I'm gone. Sir, Deputy Parks said, with all due respect, Woods and I were born here. You don't know the woods like we do. I feel like if we send you into those woods alone, then you're never coming back out again. Guthrie started to laugh at him, but he realized the two of them were speaking from a place of respect and concern. They didn't realize that Guthrie had more experience in the woods than they knew, had more experience in the woods than he strictly wanted to, and that he would go in whether they wanted him to or not. Besides, he had his talisman. That was all you really needed when it came right down to it. It would keep him safe from everything, except what he was hunting, and that might give him enough time to find it and do away with it. I did notice that a lot of you guys have changed names. It's kind of weird. Yeah, only Old Augusto seems to be unchanged. That's kind of weird. Let's see. Trust me, the last thing I want to do is go into those woods after whatever this is. But someone is hurt and potentially missing. I'm the best tracker on the force, and I'm the only one who's likely to find her in whatever state she might be in. I have nothing but respect for the two of you for trying to come in and help me, but in this case, it really would be better if I went in alone. I wonder which of them will take your place after the beasties gobble you up. Guthrie tried not to wince as Sheriff Masterson whispered in his ear. He didn't particularly want to go into the woods, especially not with this old ghost in tow, but he felt as if he needed to go more than anything else. He couldn't explain it, wasn't really sure he could begin to describe it either, but he felt moved to go in a way that he never had before. Something was pulling him towards the woods, and he suddenly felt that the only thing there was to do was to go and see what he could find. The deputies looked at each other and seemed to be conferring silently amongst themselves. In the end, they both nodded and told Sheriff Guthrie that he needed to be careful if he was going into those woods. Both of them had gone in force. That's not the line. Okay, you. Okay, Wiggles. There you go. Both of them had been on the force longer than he had. They had both been here when he had arrived, and they knew that the people who often went missing in those woods around Stragview never came out again. Despite the fact that He gave them a lot of shit for being irresponsible. They both knew that he rode them so hard because he wanted them to do better, wanted the department to be taken more seriously, wanted them to live long enough to be considered for sheriff too, if that's what they wanted. There we go. Parks went back to his cruiser, asking the sheriff to hold on for a minute, and came back with the long-range emergency walkie that he kept in the trunk. Just like you tell us, check in every hour. If you get hurt, then use the little button to send an emergency signal, and we'll come get you. If you find her and she's hurt, then use the button as well, and we'll come in with the park rangers. Come back out, Sheriff. We still have business here in town, and neither Woods nor I are ready to fill your shoes just yet. Guthrie felt his eyes mist a little as he took the walkie, but those feelings were squashed pretty quickly as the old ghost cackled behind him. Well, ain't that sweet? I wonder which one of 'em will die for you before the year's out. How many more people on the force will you get killed with your big city ways and your failure to understand? Guthrie didn't respond. He put the walkie on his belt, slung the shotgun around his shoulder, and checked to make sure his pistol was in its holster. Then he clicked the light on the nose of the shotgun and headed off into the woods. Deputy Parks and Deputy Woods watched him go, wondering if he would ever come back out again. In truth, Sheriff Guthrie was wondering about the same thing. Excuse me. We are reading part 6 of our Kashmir Halloween Spooktacular, if you're just joining us. So, a lot of different stories in play here, so, you know, whenever you join us, it's fine to pick it up in the middle. The Barker was standing outside the shed when Sam arrived. He looked distressed, but also curious. He was looking at the door to the haunted house that had been freshly painted and newly decorated, and he didn't seem to know just what to do. August came to find me. He said he and Tobias had gone in to destroy my haunted house. The fools didn't realize that it wasn't something real. It's a glamour that could not be destroyed by the likes of them. Whatever August saw inside upset him badly, and he stumbled out and made a run for the concession stand. Unfortunately, he lost track of Tobias inside. I don't know where Tobias is, but I'm unable to find him inside the depths of the house. Sam looked at him quizzically. Isn't it your glamour? How is it that you can't find him in something that you made? The Barker only shrugged. I weave the magic, but I do not shape what they see. They are as responsible for what they craft as I am. And right now, Tobias is lost in that miasma. I can't find him because he does not wish to be found. But you may have better luck. Your own powers are stronger than mine. You may be able to succeed while I... Yeah. Dang it. There we go. I always like to hear you guys' conversations. You may be able to succeed where I could not. Sam looked at the opening to the haunted house and felt his insides squirm a little. He remembered the nightmares he had suffered at the hands of the Barker, the feeling of helplessness that permeated his very being, and the thought of plunging back into that was not something he relished. Even so, he was the summer knight, and such things were his responsibility. Tobias, despite being bitter and rebellious, was still under his protection. Sam could no more abandon him now than he could abandon any of those who served the lady. "I'm going in. If I don't come out in 30 minutes, go get the lady and tell her to take whatever this is apart." The barker bowed, and Sam drew his sword and headed into the haunted house. He should have walked in, taken a dozen steps, and then banged into the back of the shed. Instead, Sam. Sam stepped into the thick mist that seemed to surround the interior of the shed like smoke in a burning house. He could hear noises inside that fog, screams and cries for help, and some of them he recognized. The lady's scream was very similar to the one that she had loosed as they came into the cave to find her. He heard Randy yelling in pain, heard others calling for help, and even heard Tobias as he begged him to save him. He couldn't see more than a foot in front of his face, and the deeper he went, the more he regretted coming in at all. Sam had gone about 50 or 60 paces into the haunted house when he saw someone chained to the floor. Sam raised his sword, prepared to strike if something came slobbering out of the darkness at him. But as he approached, he saw the person chained to the floor was him. Not the him he was now, armored and draped in fey power, but the him that he had been. He was small, weak, bleeding from more than a dozen wounds. This was probably the person who had nearly died in that cave when he went to go save his mistress. And as the painful creature as the pitiful creature looked up at him, it seemed to beg him for death. "You can't save them. No one can save them. All the power and strength in the summer court can't save them. You'll lose in the end. They all lose in the end. You'll lose, and then you'll..." But Sam had already had enough. He swung the sword down and cut himself in half. He fell to pieces before joining the mist, and Sam shook his head before moving on. Self-doubt was not something he had time for, especially if he was going to find Tobias. The screaming had stopped, some of the mist moving away from him as if it were afraid that he might take a swing at it, and Sam was glad. He didn't have time for this. There was real work to do, and this melodrama was getting old. There we go. He moved further in, eyes sweeping from side to side, and when he found Tobias, it nearly sent him falling to the ground. He was curled into a ball, his knees pulled against his chest, and Sam tripped over him and caught himself. Tobias was shaking, his face pressed to his knees, and as Sam shook him, he turned around in terror. "Sam? Is it really you?" "It's me," Sam said, offering him a hand. "Are you okay?" "I will be as soon as I get out of here," Tobias said. He helped Tobias to his feet, and the two of them made their way through the smoke. "What happened?" Sam asked. Tobias leaned heavily on him, but he didn't say anything for a while. "I underestimated him," he finally said. "I won't make that mistake again." "You're right," Sam said, seeing a light up ahead, "because this is over. You know better now, and we won't have to have this conversation again, right?" On that challenge, Tobias said nothing. As they came out into the afternoon light, they found the barker still standing in the spot that Sam had left him. He was waiting for them to... Hang on a second. He was waiting for them to come out, and as he saw them, his face was glad. Not smug, no, I told you so's, just relief that they had come out okay. Tobias and the Barker made eye contact. The two nodded at each other, and something passed between them that Sam didn't quite catch. Then Tobias let go of Sam and headed shakily to the other side of the park. Sam didn't kid himself that this was over, but maybe they had reached a truce for now. If you're just joining us, this is the first Kashmir story of 5, so pull up a rock and hang on there with us. Marcus pushed another one of the creatures aside as he and Grandpa made their way through the woods. They had been beset by them after the first one had come sniffing around, and Grandpa had finally told Marcus to man his shield as he took them out with energy blasts and bolts of lightning. Grandpa had done this effortlessly, knocking each of them aside with a well-practiced flick of his wrist. Marcus had never seen him throw power around quite so effortlessly, but he supposed it was likely that it wasn't too difficult for the old fellow. Maybe Grandpa had been holding back all these years, but the way he dispatched the creatures reminded Marcus of the way he had dealt with the Green Man and his bunch. Grandpa might be frail, he might even be dying, if Marcus wanted to think that hard about it, but there was still a lot of power in him, and only the foolish would think otherwise. "You really kicked a hornet's nest, didn't you?" Grandpa asked, as he tossed another one of those creatures away as easily as Marcus might toss a Nerf football. "Yeah, I guess I did. What are these things?" "Not sure. Never seen anything like them before." Marcus was surprised. "What do you mean? I thought you'd seen about everything around here." Another one of those creatures hit the dome of Marcus's shield, and Grandpa pushed it off as it rolled back into the woods. "Believe it or not, kid, there are still secrets out there that even I don't know." Excuse me. "Just because I've lived a long time doesn't mean that I know everything. There are still some surprises out there, even I don't know about. Suppose that makes life worth living. Even when you know most things, you don't know everything." How very profound, Gramps, but it doesn't really help us in this situation. If we don't know what these things are, then how do we know how to fight them? Aw, we missed you too, Winter. It has been a minute. Grandpa shrugged. "Well, we don't seem to be doing too badly. They haven't got us, and we haven't died yet, so I guess it's going pretty well." Marcus started to tell the old man that this really wasn't anybody's idea of a good time, but Grandpa put a hand up as a new sound started their way. It was a little bit louder, a little less interested in hiding, and Grandpa was the first one to notice that the creature that had been tailing them had stopped for the time being. Whoever was approaching them, they sounded a lot less substantial than the eyeless monstrosities that had been trying to stop them from getting to wherever they were going. Marcus wondered if this was the one that was in control of them, the one who was giving them their marching orders. But as she broke through the canopy of trees, he saw that it was no monster. It was the therapist from back in town. It was strange to see Dr. Winters wandering around out here, but here she was in the middle of the night, looking as if she were out for nothing more strenuous than an evening stroll. "Well, well, if it isn't my two favorite wizards. I didn't expect to find any company out here on the trail. I might have known that you'd be the one sending these creatures our way," Grandpa growled. "You must be up to no good out here if you're trying to keep it a secret." About that time, something snarled and jumped through the brush at the pair of them. Marcus centered his shield, but the doctor was quicker. Dr. Winters raised her hand and brushed the creature aside with no more effort than Grandpa had, and as it soared back into the trees and out of sight, she turned back to the two of them with a smile. "You were saying?" Grandpa gave her a gummy grin. "I stand corrected. It appears that maybe you are not the orchestrator of our difficulties. I don't suppose you'd like some company on your walk. I've a feeling we might be heading to the same place." Dr. Winters smiled. "I have a feeling you might be right. I would actually like some company, as it turns out. Perhaps you can regale me with one of your stories while we make our way to wherever it is you're going. I hear most of your charm is in your wild and fantastic tales." Grandpa smiled as he offered her his arm. "Ma'am, it would be my pleasure." That's the first story. Winter, I'm sorry to hear that. You have been a long-time subscriber. We've missed you. Like, it's been forever since you've been to a live stream, or since I've seen you comment at all. Like, I had figured maybe you were having a bad time there. We hope to see more of you, for definite. Let's move on to the next one. Let's see here. We need... Okay, that one was over the river. Now we gotta go to through the woods. Alright. So, on to the next one. If you're just joining us, this is our second story in our Kashmir Spooktacular. So, drag up a rock. We're in for the long run here. The Warden of Stragview soared above the trees, following the pull of whatever he was feeling in the woods. He loved flying. He would have flown everywhere, except that regular people got more than a little on edge when you sprouted wings and took to the sky. He was also flying because setting foot in the forest might not be such a good idea right now. The things that lived here wouldn't let him stay for long, but he supposed that if he were deep enough in the woods, it would take them time to find him. They had been his friends once upon a time, but he supposed they had found a new master now. No matter. He'd command them again after this nonsense was taken care of. If you come to many live streams, they certainly will acquaint themselves with you. What's up, man? Osiris, good to see you, man. He saw a movement below him and decided that it might be time to see what had brought him out here. The hole was still farther up, but he could feel the presence of someone like him closer to the ground. It was a presence he knew well, and he decided it might be time to say hello. He folded his wings and dove, coming down like a meteor as he landed amidst the trees. He was quiet for a moment, judging exactly who it was walking through the woods. But when they broke cover and came to say hello, he recognized them almost at once. "Big brother, what a pleasure it is to see you." The warden snorted. "You were always such a bad liar, little brother. How is it that I find you here so close to our sister's territory, and in my own territory, no less?" Mr. Seraph grinned. "I have come seeking the security that one finds amongst their family. You remember what that's like. In our lowest times, we always seek out those with familial ties." The warden laughed. "Running from something, I suppose." Mr. Seraph returned the laugh. "Yes, indeed. You always could see right through me, and always will. What brings you into the woods tonight?" "I felt pulled by something I could not name. Same as you, I would wager. Would you like to walk with me? I think we might find answers we both seek a little further along. That needs a K. Oh no. Oh no. Leia, that's awful. Goodness. It happens. Yeah, definitely watch out for concussions. Let's see. The warden thought about it and finally shrugged. Why not, I suppose? It's been a while since the two of us walked together. How goes your business ventures? As well as could be expected. I've made myself a very rich man, buying from mortals. They sell their gifts so easily, and for relatively little. I then sell what I buy to other mortals, who pay far more than what I paid the first group for their talent. It's a system with only one winner, and that winner is me. The warden shook his head, still as obsessed with wealth as ever. I suppose the apple did not fall far from the tree. It was never about the money, Mr. Seraph said. Oh, don't get me wrong, the money is nice, but that was never the deciding factor. Then, what has it all been for? Unlike our father, I was never truly interested in gaining or maintaining wealth. For me, it was always about the chaos that such actions reap. Watching the mortals realize what they've lost, watching them scramble to get it back, watching the disappointment and rage when they realize it will never be theirs again. Such things are far greater than any wealth I might ever make off a single transaction. The warden chuckled, and it sent night birds scattering into the sky. Suffering! Now that is a meat that I have always liked the taste of. We should do business together sometime. I've set up quite a little mill further up the road. If suffering is what you want, then I have a bank. Then I have a banquet indeed. Much like many of the mortals I do business with, I prefer my suffering cage-free. Free-range suffering is just so much more delectable. If you would be willing, I would be happy to do business with you, though. Our sister has forbidden me to go plying my trade in town, so I'm off to dine on whatever scraps I can find, or whatever animals are foolish enough to walk into my trap. The warden smiled, realizing he might be able to fix some of what was causing his melancholy. I believe we may be able to help each other out, if you're willing to help your big brother with something pressing. The two of them spoke as they walked, years of bad blood disappearing rather quickly. Kashmir might not be big enough for two demons, but it appeared that prison had enough room for as many as could be found. That's needs it open. Alrighty. Sometimes I like to read over you guys' conversation. Alrighty. Earl felt his hair stand up as the canopy rustled overhead. What was he doing? Everyone knew it was suicide to go into the woods after dark. Most people didn't even like going in there during the daytime. And here he was, tromping through the dark woods in the middle of the night. Every cracked twig or night noise sounded like a slobbering beast preparing to fall on him. Every owl hoot or small rodent noise sounded like the stalking feet of some terrible creature. Earl also had to remind himself that there was a dangerous beastie out here. Whether she loved him or not, whether Candace cared for him or not, her other half may not have such feelings. If he happened upon this werewolf, then he could just as easily be torn into pieces as drawn into a furry hug. None of that mattered to Earl. He had to find her, and he had to do it quickly before the police did. He didn't want Candace to get hurt, but he also didn't want Sheriff Guthrie and his men to get hurt either. Parks and Woods were his friends, and the idea of his new girlfriend ripping them to shreds made him more than a little queasy. There we go. A branch broke behind him, sounding like a gunshot, and Earl went completely still. He turned his head slowly, probably looking like a cartoon character in one of those Hanna-Barbera shows, and what his flashlight fell upon was not a bloodthirsty werewolf, but something that looked like an insectoid mountain lion. It didn't appear to have any eyes, just a lot of shiny skin that moved unbroken from its nose to the base of its skull. What it did have was a mouthful of very sharp teeth. Its tongue was darting out to taste the air, its nostrils drinking in the smells of the night, and its head was pointed directly at Earl. Earl stood still, trying to make as little noise as possible, but he was quite sure that the creature could hear his knees knocking together. This thing was more than capable of ripping him to shreds, and he did not think that this was the form his girlfriend had decided to take. No, Earl was pretty sure that he had found out what was bothering people and making them was disappearing people out in the woods, and he was going to be as dead as the man that had been in her bathroom very soon. We're reading the second part of our Kashmir Spooktacular story, so if you're just joining us, there's a lot of story to go. The creature took a step towards him, nose still twitching as it tried to find him. Earl had the sickening suspicion that it was blind, but it wasn't a notion that he wanted to test. He took a slow step backwards, but the second his foot came down on the dead leaves of the forest path, the creature's head whipped up in his direction. Earl put a hand over his mouth to muffle his ragged breathing, and the creature took another step in his direction. This was clearly why they had all been told to stay out of the woods. There were probably a lot of these things out there, and the last thing he wanted to do was run afoul of one of them. Earl kept stepping backwards, not really sure what he intended to do, but he had to stop himself from running with a great effort. Earl wanted to run away as fast as he could manage, but such a thing might draw the attention of this creature. It wouldn't do to get killed out here while Candace was still roaming around in her werewolf form. What would the police think if they found his corpse out here too? He didn't know, but as the creature prepared to spring on him, Earl closed his eyes and said a prayer to God to save him. Perhaps God even answered it, but it was Candace who ended up saving his life. The creature was about 2 seconds from burying him under a pile of armored chitin when something big and furry hit it in the dead center of the back and rolled it into the woods. Earl screamed and pulled himself into a ball as the two creatures battled over who was going to get to eat him. The furry creature raked its claws across the nightmare beast's skin, and it seemed to be bothered by all that smooth chitin no more than it would have Earl's clothes. The eyeless creature screamed like a woman and bit at the furry thing, but it spun out of its jaws and threw it into the woods with powerful arms. The shining cat creature seemed to remember that it had pressing matters elsewhere, and as it took off into the woods, Earl peeked out and saw that the furry creature that had saved his life was now ready to take its prize. It looked like the werewolf from that old movie about the tourist who found himself in London. It had a thick body with long, spindly arms. Its legs and joints... Legs... Oh. Its legs were jointed, so they bent backwards at the knee, and then tapered down into powerful paws. Its jaws disemboweled. Its jaws what? Oh. There we go. Resembled. Its jaws resembled a crocodile snout more than any wolf, and they were full of teeth that looked more than capable of reducing Earl to a pile of meat scraps. Its eyes were piss yellow, angry little pools that sat in its skull, and as it approached, Earl thought, excuse me. Earl thought there might be something he could say to save himself. Candace? Candace, it's me. It's Earl. I came looking for you. The creature stopped and turned its head to the side, like a dog contemplating a familiar voice. I know you told me that it could be dangerous, but after I saw your apartment, I wanted to make sure you were okay. I don't see any full moon, so I guess it doesn't work the way it does in the movies. He said it with a chuckle, but the werewolf did not seem to share the humor. Hey, glad you could make it. We've got quite a little crowd tonight. Candace, you don't have to hurt me. You saved my life, and I'm real grateful for that. I can leave, and you can go back to whatever it is you need to do to find yourself again. I love you. I know it's a little early to say that, but I feel like I do. I've gotten to know you so much in the last few weeks, and I really think that you could be the person I was meant to find. I didn't ever think it would happen to me. I assumed I'd just be a lonely gravekeeper till I died, but you've made me think there might be a future for the two of us. I suppose there won't be if you tear me into little strips, but I hope you've got enough of yourself in there not to kill and dismember me on general principle. Whatever was left of Candace seemed to be trying to keep the beast from killing Earl. It put its hands in its furry head and closed its ears as it swayed a little. It snapped at the air, Earl taking another step back as he worried it might pounce on him. And when it opened its eyes and looked at him, he was sure that he saw a bit of Candace's old self deep down in those yellow pits. If you let me go, I'll take you out to lunch tomorrow. Scout's honor. I'll even make sure it's somewhere with good food and less grease than the diner. Candace... excuse me. The Candace werewolf stared at him for a count of 5. 5 of the longest seconds in Earl's entire life, and then it threw itself sideways into the woods and ran off into the trees. Earl breathed a sigh of relief, realizing that somehow he had lived through this, and beat a hasty retreat as he headed as far from the woods as he could get. Trying to catch up on conversation here. Welcome everybody. We're on story 2 of our Kashmir Spooktacular, so it looks like it's going to be a long night of stories here. Sheriff Guthrie spun to look at every sound around him. He wished he had let Deputy Parks and Deputy Woods come with him, but he knew that was just the nerves talking. Jumpy thing, ain't ya? Sheriff Guthrie supposed he wasn't alone. Hang on. Sheriff Guthrie supposed he wasn't alone out here. He had the ghost of Sheriff Masterson to keep him company. He supposed that Sheriff Masterson would be the one to watch him get eaten up by whatever it was that lived out here, as he told him what a fool he was. That would be fitting somehow, he supposed. The old ghost had told him how he was going to wind up in an early grave, and now it appeared that was going to come to pass. You know you'll never find that gal if she's out here. Sheriff Masterson was trying to get him to give his position away to whatever might be out here, and Sheriff Guthrie was not going to let him get him killed. More than likely, you'll just trip and fall in a hole and break your ankle and starve to death out here. Sheriff Guthrie continued to ignore the old ghoul. He could practically hear the frustration in his voice. You just gonna ignore me the whole time? Or are you going to... Will you shut the hell up? Sheriff Guthrie breathed through his teeth. It's not enough that I have to trample through the dark woods in the middle of the night, but I also have to listen to your endless bullshit. Is that so? Sheriff Masterson retorted. Well, maybe you're out here because I sent you out here. Did you ever think of that? You? Just what the hell would you send me out here for? Maybe it's exactly where you need to be to get me off your back. Did you ever stop to think about that? You felt the pull ever since you watched that creature jump out the window. Don't deny it, because we both know better. You felt drawn to this place, and perhaps tonight you'll get the chance to make sure your town is finally safe. I don't believe that. Doesn't matter what you believe. The facts are the facts. Sheriff Guthrie would have said more, but he heard people talking up ahead and decided it might be best to keep his trap shut. He got low, gun at the ready, and when a pair of well-dressed fellas came around the corner, they both jumped as he stepped into their path with his gun raised. He put it down again when he recognized the two of them. One of them, a person he knew quite well. Warden, and you're Mr. Sarah? Seraph, said the man in the rumpled business suit. What are you two doing out here? Given that this is my property, I could ask you the same thing, the warden asked him curtly. Yes? I'm live streaming. Hi. You guys are making an awful lot of noise out there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Let me tell them this quiet down.
Let the door open and closey, open and closey.
Oh, me and the Chihuahua next door are beefing. Sorry about that.
Oh, it happens. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Let's see. Where were we? She wanders in every now and again. Damn it. The word nasty currently. Oh, goodness. I hear that little crackle now. Ugh, I was really hoping it wouldn't do that tonight. I have got to get a new cord. Give me just a second, guys. Doot, doot. Oh my god, it's even worse now. Oh, well, thank you. Okay. That's a little better. Or maybe it's not. I can't tell. Yeah, that's normal. He's my big boy. He's asleep over there in his little chair. Okay, so okay, let's see. The warden asked him curtly. Sheriff Guthrie lowered his gun. This is The warden asked him curtly. Sheriff Guthrie lowered his gun. This is state property. Just because you're the warden doesn't mean you own the whole woods. The warden gave him a waxy smile. Think whatever you like, Sheriff. My associate and I were out for a walk. Why don't you come join us? I have a feeling we're all heading to the same place. Sheriff Guthrie felt his gun shake a little. How do you know that? Oh, call it a hunch. Alrighty. We're going to move on to part number 3. I'm surprised he's not already. There it is. Okay, we're going to move on to part 8, I suppose. To the hole in the woods we go. Doot, 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 doot. Doot, 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 doot. Oh, yeah. Mike needs a new cord real bad. Jesus. Check. 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 Okay. God. Static really gets on my nerves. Trying to put on a respectable show here, and I got all this background static. Hey, Brandy. We're glad you could make it. Yeah, I need to drag my butt up to Walmart and see if they've got another one. It's getting really bad. Alright, so let's start part 3 here. And that is how I met the Sasquatch. The 3 of them, Grandpa, Marcus, and Dr. Winters, were all walking through the woods as the night took its slow time around them. The creatures had stopped attacking them once Dr. Winters had joined them. They seemed less eager to approach the good doctor, and it was pretty clear that they knew who and what she was. And I thought I had some interesting stories. You, sir, seem to have quite a few amazing tales. Well, I'm afraid to say that mine are just for retelling, not for consumption. Dr. Winters shook her head. I don't know why you have so much distrust for me. I've only ever really helped the citizens of Kashmir. Grandpa chewed that over for a moment. It is possible that I had misjudged you. I'm a simple country fella. Most of my business comes from getting rid of spirits that people don't want. I never stopped to consider there might be a spirit that somebody wants to keep around. You seem like a nice enough sort, but you're certainly 1 in a million if that's the case. I suppose if you knew my brothers, then you would know how true a statement that was. Most of them aren't worth the trouble to kill. They certainly do not have the best interests of others in mind, though. Dr. Winters wondered if that was still true. She'd been working on the assumption that both her brothers were self-centered egotists, but seeing the way her younger brother interacted with those he liked was enough to make her rethink that statement. He had changed, so why couldn't her older brother change as well? She wasn't sure there was still time enough for him to turn over a new leaf, but time was something demons usually had quite a lot of. Are we getting close? Marcus asked. Why? Did you have other places to be? Dr. Winters asked good-naturedly. I suppose not, but I'm very curious to know where we're going. Grandpa says we're being pulled along by some sort of otherworldly force, and I suspect you might be as well. Have you got any clue of what force it might be? Dr. Winters shook her head, but she thought that wasn't entirely true. She did seem to remember something, a vague memory from a long, long time ago. Perhaps she had known this place once upon a time, but if it held any significance for her, then that time had long passed. There were bits and pieces of something, drips and drabs that refused to go away. But whatever the case, she couldn't really be sure of what it was. She'd just have to see this through to the end, and then perhaps there would be some sort of explanation. You only really feel it if you're spiritually inclined in such a way. It's like a tug, like something pulling a rope around your waist. Marcus blew out a long breath. Well, if that doesn't stroke my ego, I suppose. Don't be too hard on yourself, son. You've been living this life for a couple of years now, and I've been immersed in it since I was a teenager. I'm used to feeling for these sorts of things, and it's something that you've only recently started thinking about. Your time will come. Sooner than you think, I would warrant. Dr. Winters put in. Grandpa gave her a hard look that Marcus missed, and she gave him a questioning look as if she wasn't sure why he hadn't told his grandson yet. They kept walking, listening out for any new ambushers, but it appeared their pursuers had lost interest or were taking them exactly where they wanted to go. It kind of looks like we might be heading for an area I've always thought of as the Hole. And what is the Hole exactly? Dr. Winters was silent for a minute, and it didn't sound like she was going to respond before she finally answered him. I don't really know, but there's a pretty good chance that it might be a portal to hell. Give me a second, guys. Okay. So, what brings you two out to the woods tonight anyway? The three of them made quite an odd group. The sheriff of Kashmir, riot gun slung around his neck, the new face in town who sold nothing except to those who knew how to buy it, and was dressed in a suit that probably cost as much as the sheriff's riot gun, and the legendary Warden of Stragview in a pinstripe suit that seemed plucked right out of time itself. They were figures that most people knew, even if they didn't know them well. And now, here they were, all of them in one place. That made quite the statement as they trumped through the woods, and Sheriff Guthrie was pretty sure they looked ridiculous to anyone who might happen upon them. You keep asking that question, as if you expect a different answer, the warden said, with only a little bit of exasperation. I could ask you the same question. What brings you out into the woods in the middle of the night, Sheriff? I told you, I'm hunting for a creature that's abducted a young woman, trying to find her and hopefully kill the creature before it attacks anyone else. Mr. Seraph and the warden gave each other knowing looks, and Sheriff Guthrie was a little put out by seeing their seeming unwillingness to share information with him. You two keep doing that. If you know something, then just say it. All the secrecy. How long have you been in town, Sheriff Guthrie? About 2 years, I suppose. I've been here less than a year, and I've already figured out that this place runs on secrets. I would have thought you would know that by now. Secrets are the part and parcel of a town like this. They are its stock in trade, its chief export, and just because they annoy a man who knows only how to seek. I don't understand that statement, but okay. And just because they know... Yeah. Try that one again. And just because they annoy a man who knows only how to seek the truth is no reason to hate them. I get so tired of feeling like I'm on the back foot with this place. I just want some straight answers. When are you going to learn? No. When are you gonna learn, came the voice of Sheriff Masterson as he clung to his shoulder, that straight answers aren't something we do around here. Seems like you might need to learn that straight answers aren't something we do around here, the warden said, mimicking the old ghost word for word. Your mentor has the right of it anyway. It's best to just accept that this place has its secrets, and move on. It took Guthrie a moment to realize that the warden was talking about Sheriff Masterson. He had thought maybe he was referring to someone in town, but it hit him like a ton of bricks when he realized that the warden of Stragview could see the ghostly angel, or the ghostly devil, Guthrie supposed, that was sitting on his shoulder. Wait, you can see him? Of course. Good to see you again, Sheriff Masterson. I'd say in the flesh, but there appears to be very little of it these days. The spirit of Sheriff Masterson gritted his rotten teeth and shook his head. Just as big an asshole as always. You should pick your traveling companions a little better, boy. The knowledge that Guthrie wasn't the only one who could see him washed over him like a tidal wave. Guthrie had never truly believed that he was actually being haunted by the ghost of his former boss. Deep down, he'd almost believed it, but on top he'd always thought he might be going crazy. Maybe the job was getting to him, maybe he was losing his mind, but he'd never really believed in Sheriff Masterson or in his warnings. He supposed that was why he'd been so slow to act. In a way, it was almost a relief. In a way, it was a disappointment to realize that this spirit or delusion or whatever it was wasn't going to go away. You're not fooling, right? You can really see him. Mr. Seraph snorted. Dear boy, as noisy as that spirit has been, was there ever any doubt in your mind that he was real? I would hazard a guess that you've been contending him. Yeah. Been contending with him for quite some time. He must be real, unless... The man in the suit looked very sad. You thought you were losing your mind, didn't you? You poor man. Never sure whether the voice of that old ghost was real or not. The warden only laughed. That's nothing. You should see the ghosts that hang around the prison. Ghosts you yourself created, Sheriff Masterson pointed out. Guilty as charged. How does it feel to know that all that sniffing you did around my prison probably had some justification? Though, I notice you never stepped foot inside the gate. Sheriff Guthrie looked back at the old spook and saw him scrunch his face up in a look of extreme discontent. Probably because you know that even though you're cock of the walk in town, inside those gates, I'm in charge, and no one can say boo about it. He was talking to Sheriff Masterson, but Sheriff Guthrie could swear that he was looking straight at him. The message was received. Sheriff Guthrie might be hot shit in town, but Stragview was where the warden called the shots. Why is he following you anyway? Mr. Seraph asked. Did you have unfinished business with him? He was probably responsible for his death. Sheriff Guthrie looked like someone had forced him to... Blech. Sheriff Guthrie looked like someone had force-fed him a worm, but the warden only shrugged and chuckled. Don't act so surprised. It's common knowledge that you were the sheriff's partner. The two of you went out on traffic stops and emergency calls together. Together. We're going to cut some of that. The rumor mill believed that Sheriff Masterson was grooming you to be his replacement. Now the rumor mill thinks you probably bumped him off so you could have his position. Why, I'd ever back a screw-up like you, Sheriff Masterson wheezed from behind Sheriff Guthrie. So, did you do it? The warden asked him, a cheeky smile spreading across his face. You wouldn't be the first murderer I've had a conversation with, and I'm certainly not in a position to tattle on you. You run the town just fine, so there'd be nothing to gain by airing your dirty laundry. Sheriff Guthrie was silent for a second. The only sound was... Damn these hiccups. The only sound was the crunching of the leaves and twigs underfoot, and when he spoke, it was almost too low to be picked up as it lay beneath the sounds of the night birds and crickets. I didn't kill him, but I might as well have. I took something from him that was keeping him safe. I took it so I could get out alive. Guys, give me just a second. Hang on. Sorry about that, guys. Guthrie, after a second or two of contemplation, took out the old talisman he had in his pocket and showed it to him. He saw 2 sets of eyebrows go up in disbelief. That is very interesting, the warden said. Now, where do you suppose Sheriff Masterson got a thing like that? I don't even know what it is, Sheriff Guthrie confided. He said it would keep us safe from the creatures, but one of them got him anyway. It's a talisman that's supposed to ward off lesser hellspawn. I see other people in town carrying them, but they've kind of fallen out of fashion lately. I remember a time when everybody on the road had their own little sigil against what lived in the woods, though it's not likely to be as effective against larger demonic presences. Another of those looks passed between the 2 men, and Guthrie got the feeling the warden was speaking from experience. So, the things that dwell in the forest are hellspawn, then? They're hellhounds. At least the ones you've likely seen are. Are there others? Sheriff Guthrie asked the question as if he wasn't sure he really wanted an answer. Many more, but aside from the hellhounds and the midges, doubt you'll find much else out here. I assume that's where we're going. To the place where they all come forth. To the place... To the place where we all come forth, Mr. Seraph said, but the warden elbowed him. He needn't have bothered. Sheriff Guthrie was enthralled by the sight of the glowing pit ahead of them. They were walking through the bare stretch between the woods and the pit that Sheriff Guthrie had glimpsed from a quarter of a mile away before he had taken on the mantle of sheriff. There were forms capering around it, but they hunkered back as the 3 men stepped closer to the edge of the glowing hole. They weren't alone either. On the other side, looking for all the world like opponents at opposite ends of a board, were three other figures. Two men, looking like they might have gotten lost on their way to a Dresden Files convention, and a woman who Sheriff Guthrie recognized. Dr. Winters? Sister, said the warden. Sister, said Mr. Seraph. Dr. Winters scrunched up her face at the sight of them. Why is it that every time I'm having such a nice evening, one of you has to show up and ruin it? Before either of them could answer, a seventh person joined their little party. He stood at the head of the glowing hole, twitching and chittering a little, as the eerie lights lit his face. Sheriff Guthrie knew him. Dr. Winters knew him, but he was a mystery to the others. They had seen him around, but nobody seemed to know that he was important in some way to the events that were unfolding before them. It was the writer, dressed in the same black long-sleeve shirt and jeans that he always wore. Who am I? He asked. And the question came out as pitifully as he could manage. All right, that's part 3. Whew! Goodness, these are long stories tonight. Congrats, Leia. That's awesome. Awesome possum. Leave it to a writer to write about a writer, I suppose. Okay, let's see. Oh no, did I write too much? No, probably not. Oh, that's what I did. I'm so silly. I was panicking earlier because I thought I did not have enough stuff. But now I see that maybe I wrote too much. It seems to happen all the time. Okay. Excuse me. All right, part 4. It looks like part 5 is just gonna be really big, which is good because the latter part of part 5 was kind of small. All right. Boop. Okay. Ooh, yeah, that's almost 3,000 words for our part 4 here, so that's going to be a biggie. All right. Nice. I can't wait to really get started on that one, Leia. That one looks really cool. Oh, that's kind of sad. Alrighty, part 4 does not have a working title yet, so bear with me. And here we go. For a moment, the 6 of them just stood there, looking at the new arrival. He'd clearly made his way through the woods as well. His hair was a mess of twigs and burdocks. The cups of his pants were encrusted with hitchhikers, and he'd lost one of his sandals along the way. His left foot looked cut and bloody, but he didn't seem to have noticed. He was raking his fingers through his dark hair, looking at them as if trying to discern what was going on. Who am I? You're the writer, Sheriff Guthrie said, as he put his riot gun away. I remember when Sheriff Masterson introduced us. He said you'd been a resident of town for a long time, and no one could quite remember exactly how long. I don't think I've ever had the pleasure of meeting this one, the warden said, though his tone was dubious. I've seen him around, said Grandpa. He's been here for a long time. Grandpa got a weird look on his face, as if he might be a little bit lost. I feel like he's only been here for a few years, but I also feel like he's been here forever. I pride myself on knowing most of the odd characters in town, but I don't know this one. I do, said Dr. Winters, as she moved around the pit so that she could put an arm around him. He's a patient of mine, a truly troubled soul. We speak often, and just recently, he seemed to have begun to forget who he was. How the hell did he get out into the woods? Marcus asked. He's not even armed. Those hellhounds would have made a snack out of him for sure. Dr. Winters fussed over him a little bit. The twig, not the wig. Picking the twigs out of his hair and smoothing some of the burdocks from the sleeves of his sweater. The strange things that occupy Kashmir tend to leave him alone. They ignore him, or maybe they don't see him at all. The people of Kashmir do the same. They see him, they know who he is, and what he does, but they overlook him because he isn't part of their stories. But you see him, Grandpa said, the word story seeming to catch his interest. Well, of course, Dr. Winters said. He's a part of my story, after all. He was the first one to welcome me to Kashmir. A long, long time ago. She hadn't remembered it, not for a very long time, but suddenly it came back to her, like one of those aha moments that we all get when a long-buried memory finally comes to the surface. It had been on a night very similar to this one, when they had met for the first time. It had been on a night very much like this one, when she had come to be here and was in a position to be welcomed by the first resident of Kashmir. The two of you would remember. You were part of it, after all. I was forced out of hell, and it was me who made the hole here in the woods. It was my exit from the underworld. It was my entrance into Kashmir. I was disoriented when I surfaced, my hands throbbing and my body aching. I was... No, Osiris, different writer. We have a lot of writers in these stories, it would appear. I was lying beside this glowing hole into hell when suddenly I heard footsteps coming from the woods. Believe it or not, I was afraid. I was weak and vulnerable after my battle with... Dr. Winters looked off into the woods in a blank and searching way. After my battle with those who would see me put out of my home. And I was afraid that whatever this was that was coming along to finish me off was going to be too much for me to handle. You two remembered the stories that Father used to tell us. He said, "Okay, Noisy Paws. Get that flea, you're being real noisy." Pat, 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 pat. Noisy, noisy, noisy. Let's try some of this again. Whew, I'm going to have no voice tomorrow. I shouldn't have made some of these so long. But you know me, I really like to put on for Halloween. You two remember the stories that Father used to tell us. He said the world outside our own was dangerous. There were men who would burn us and destroy us. There were people who would hunt us, Stop bumping my mic. That's true. That's true, Osiris. We've got more than a couple of writers in Kashmir. And there were those that could make sure that we never came back once we were slain. All of us were afraid of the material world. But when he came out of the woods, I remembered thinking that the end had come for me. No one spoke. They all hunkered around the glowing hole as they listened to her story unfold. But, to my very great surprise, he offered me his hand and his coat. He welcomed me to the town of Kashmir, and he said I could be its second resident. He told me that it was a little empty at the moment, but maybe I could help him fill it with people. He said he'd been looking for someone to help him, and here I was. He told me... Dr. Winters was suddenly cold, but not in the way that most people were. The chill was not on her skin. The chill was inside her. The memories people threw her. Blech. Grammarly has such interesting taste in words. Especially when I'm trying to tell it the words and it doesn't pick them up. The memories flowed through her like a winter wind, and she suddenly felt sure that she understood what Juliet said when she talked about having a brain freeze. Dr. Winters was experiencing her own brain freeze, and it made her want to stop telling her story. But she couldn't. She needed to remember, not just for them, but also for herself. The remembering hurt, but it also helped her. Winter may not ever be a human, but it was something that Pamela had always wanted. He asked me what my name was, and when I told him, he said that just wouldn't do. He told me my name was Pamela Winters, and I was a doctor. Not a doctor that cuts people open or that gives them medicine for their colds, but a doctor that helps people's minds. He said I could help the people of this town to forget the things that made them hurt. He said I could take those things and use them to stay alive. He said that's how I would control the demonic nature inside of me. He said I would live on the memories that people wish to be rid of, and that in that way I would be allowed to stay. Winter felt something slide down her cheeks, and when she put her hands to her face, she found that it was wet. Pamela Winters was crying, the tears coming down in big wet drops. It felt good to cry, and she laughed as she wiped the tears that were coming down away. I don't even remember how long that was. It could have been last week. It could have been 1,000,000 years ago, but after that day I started collecting people for the town. I brought in those who were lost, those who were hurt, those who needed a place to stay. Not just me, the town began to draw people in as well. The town draws in what it needs. What it needs is stories. It needs stories the way that I need memories. And I think he's part of that need. She smoothed the man's hair back from his face, smiling at him as he looked up at her with confusion. Who am I? You know who you are. You're the writer. You're the one who weaves the tales for this town, which we call home. We could not exist without you, but you could not exist without us as well. He smiled then, clapped his hands and threw his arms around Dr. Winters. And she hugged him back before looking at that hole with a look of pure hatred. What this town does not need is a portal to hell in its back acre. I think between the 6 of us we may be able to close it up. I think you would agree, Sheriff Guthrie, that being rid of this infernal portal would be of great use to the town. Isn't that so? Sheriff Guthrie nodded. His hand... Excuse me. His hand once again finding the sigil in his pocket. Very well, then. Brothers, will you help me close this portal back to our infernal home? Unless you mean to return there. The warden laughed. Return? Why would I want to go back? To play second fiddle to our father for all eternity? No. I have so much more here than I could ever hope to achieve there. I will stay and see what is in store for this town, and for my own piece of heaven on the hill. The thing about working for Father, Mr. Seraph said, is that he doesn't like to share. Everything you earn, everything you gain, a piece of it always belongs to him. Let our other siblings fetch and bow for him. I prefer to be my own man and run my own business. No, I believe I will also stay. I fear that the brimstone would not be... sorry. Indigestion. I fear that the brimstone would not help the complexion of my assistant much. And I fear that your assistant would not survive the loss. God. That's ridiculous. And I fear that your assistant would not survive the loss, he added with a little wink. Dr. Winters turned to the pair of magi who had joined her on her walk. I don't suppose either of you would have any problem with me sealing this up. Grandpa shook his head. Not in the slightest. Seems to me being rid of a portal to hell would probably be the best thing to happen to this town. It goes double for me, Marcus said. How can we help? Join hands, Dr. Winter instructed. We'll combine our efforts and close this needless hole so that no more hellspawn find their way to the surface. They came together, all of them joining hands, as the 3 demons and the 2 magi worked their strange sort of incantation. Sheriff Guthrie just stared at the hole and tried to figure out what his part in all of this was. He had no magic, no real power outside the symbol that he wore. But even as the thought occurred, he realized that wasn't true. He did have some power, didn't he? Something he had taken from his predecessor that he might not need anymore if this were closed. Yes, cast it into the hole. Use its power to seal this up and protect your town. It was the first time Sheriff Masterson had said anything to him that wasn't about some failing of his. And as their energy crackled across the opening, he put his hand in his pocket and drew out the strange symbol. He held it out waiting for the moment when their power would be at its greatest. And then he let it fall into the opening. Their power washed around it, using it as a lightning rod to direct their efforts. And with an earth-shattering crack, the hole suddenly closed itself up, the land looking as if it had never existed at all. They all stood around it, looking at the place. Ugh, indigestion's bad tonight. Looking at the place where it had once been looking at the place where it had all... I can't talk tonight. Looking at the place where it had once been ripped asunder, and as the night sounds returned to the land, all seemed to be right again. See, son, I told you when a mysterious force pulls you into the woods in the middle of the night, it's always best to heed the call. Marcus shook his head and tried to hold in his laughter. What can I say, Gramps? When you're right, you're right. They walked away from the thicket, all of them feeling the absence of the drumming magic that no longer existed there. I best be off, the warden said. We may have taken care of the hole that the forces of hell were coming out of, but the ones that still exist in the woods are not going to be terribly happy when they catch my scent. I shall see all of you very soon, I'm sure. He moved off into the woods, and when a large shadow passed over them, only Sheriff Guthrie seemed surprised. What the hell was that? My goodness, it looks like it might have been a thunderbird. Have I ever told you about thunderbirds, Sheriff Guthrie? They used to be all over this land, as abundant as chickens, but in this day and age they have... Grandpa threw an arm around the sheriff, and as they started in... As he started in on another one of his stories, and his distractions seemed to take them most of the way through the woods. He started in on another one of his stories, and his distractions seemed to take them most of the way through the woods. Marcus let Sheriff Guthrie and his grandfather walk a little bit ahead of them, Grandpa weaving his tale as Marcus and Dr. Winters and the well-dressed man took up the rear. He was not familiar with him, but he walked beside Dr. Winters as the two of them kept casting murderous glances at the other. He seemed to be showing an undue amount of interest in the ragged man that walked beside his sister. Marcus tried to think if he'd ever seen the man before, the one they called the Rider, and he thought maybe he had. He assumed he was homeless or maybe a little bit crazy, but in Kashmir, those were two kinds of people that the town certainly had quite a few of. Is he going to be okay? Marcus asked after a time. He'll be okay, Dr. Winters said, as she gave his shoulder a little squeeze. I'll take him home, and by tomorrow he'll be right as rain again. Mostly, I think he just needs a good night's sleep. Sometimes creatives don't get the sort of sleep they really need. A half hour later, they were walking out of the woods, and Marcus could see Grandpa's truck right where they had left it. They offered Sheriff Guthrie a ride back into town, and when he agreed, they offered Dr. Winters and Mr. Seraph a ride as well, but the two declined. Mr. Seraph said that he would walk, and Dr. Winters assured him that the Rider's house wasn't too far from here. Marcus, Grandpa, and a very confused Sheriff Guthrie said their good nights, and then pulled out in Grandpa's old truck and headed back into Kashmir. "Well, I suppose we should be off then," Dr. Winters said, as she clutched at the young man's shoulders protectively. "Yes, I suppose." Losing my voice. "Yes, I suppose I should be off as well. I left without telling Mr. Jones where I was going, so he's likely to be in a state." Dr. Winters turned to go, but she stopped for a moment and turned to look back at her brother. "It wasn't completely terrible to see you tonight. I suppose your presence is something I could grow used to." Her brother smiled. "It's always good to bask in your radiance for a little while, my dear sister." She gave him a dubious look. "Don't overdo it. I suppose if I saw you at the Botanical Gardens when they have their Halloween opening, I wouldn't turn my back on you." Mr. Seraph watched them go as he stuck his hands deep into his pockets and smiled. "I look forward to it," he said, pitching it too low for anyone but him to hear. As the group left the woods, someone was watching them. His friends, the forgotten guardians of Stragview, had been aware that the warden had entered the forest. They'd wanted to attack, but Reese... No. Meh. I gotta find a different thing. Gotta find a different writing platform. They had wanted to attack, to rend him to pieces, but their new master had bid them to be patient. He wanted to know what business the warden was about, and now, it appeared, he had his answer. The warden had done... Sorry, guys. Losing my voice here. Give me a second. The warden had done something in the woods, and now the glowing hole was gone. The glowing hole, that enlightening crater, which was the means by which more of his army came into the world. It was their way home, their point of egress, and now it was gone. The creatures that served him mourned the loss, but it made no difference to him. His army was as big as it was ever going to be, the creatures that came from it only adding a dozen or so every month. And with the current events going on beyond the wall, Reese knew that he had enough to take the prison. His machinations were beginning to come to fruition. Okay, that's part 4. Oof. I'm going to take a short break, guys. And get some water, and I will be right back. Give me like 2 shakes. My throat is raw. 2 shakes. Be right back. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that. Ugh, voice was getting a little ragged there. You'd think I'd know by now not to put so many different voices in one story, but I don't know. Sometimes I forget, I guess. Oof. Okay. One more to go. This is part 5. And it looks as if it's going to be a doozy. Give me just a second. Okay, there it is. I thought this one looked a little bit small. No, I was wrong. I was very wrong. Okay. It is fun. Like, it's nice to have that many characters to, like, you know, really put on a real ensemble like that. But it's hard on the pipes. Okay, so we're going to do part 5, which will have a prologue at the end as well. So that should be fun. Here we go. Dr. Winters brought the troubled writer back home in the wee hours of the morning. His house was located in a lot that seemed to lay at a junction for so many things in town. He could walk less than a mile and be in Old Town. He could walk less than a mile and be at the hospital. He could walk through the woods right up to the fence of Stragview, or take a short stretch past Old Town to the Botanical Gardens. She briefly wondered how far his house was from Grandpa's house, but she put it out of her mind. The writer seemed to sit at a nexus of so many events, and she was only now beginning to understand his importance. I need to get back to work. Right now, what you need to do is get some rest. How many times have I told you that the trick to your recovery is rest and relaxation? You need to put your mind at ease and see if you can't be in a better state of mind. Most of your problems stem from your lack of leisure time. You need to stop working so hard and focus a little more on what's best for you. Come on, I'll make you some tea and we'll discuss it. She walked up to his front door and found it unlocked. That was no great surprise. It was usually unlocked. It was one of the things she liked about Kashmir. Very few people seemed to break into each other's houses and take what they had, or come in and kill people needlessly. Kashmir had its disputes, its feuds, and its murders, but the amount of senseless crime seemed to be very low. She opened the door and found his home much the way she remembered it. Excuse me. The outside was beautiful. A 2-story brick home with The outside was beautiful. A 2-story brick home with well-maintained hedges and a lawn that seemed constantly taken care of. The upstairs windows looked down over a yard, like the eyes of a sleeping giant, and everything about the outside seemed what? Seemed to... There it is. See if that cuts down on the static a little. Yep, it is definitely time to get a new cord. Okay. Try to power through this here. And everything about the outside seemed to belie the chaos going on behind the surface. Inside, the house was a disaster area. Dr. Winters knew that he had a maid who came by twice a week, but the living room always seemed to be cluttered with old food wrappers and the remains of snacks gone by. There were stains on the furniture, grease stains, and the remains of sauces and dips, and she could smell the trash in the kitchen from here. She set him in his easy chair, a chair that always seemed to be clean amidst the heap, and went into the kitchen to see if she couldn't put some of it to right. The sink was full of dirty dishes. That's awfully low. Okay. The fridge was empty and the door hung open, and the trash was overflowing onto the floor. Dr. Winters sighed. Good mental health began at home, and nothing but chaos could come from this place. She took some time picking up and tidying up, taking out the trash and closing the refrigerator door. And then she got a fresh bag and picked up some of the garbage in the kitchen and living room that hadn't quite made it to the can. This was all very standard for her. She often brought him home and picked up a little bit, as she tried to fix his troubled mind. Some people in town would have said this was foolish, but Dr. Winters felt that she owed the man so much. He'd been there for her in her early days, back when she had still been bright and sane. When he had still been bright. She had still been bright. Oh, yeah, maybe that's the static. I do have a lot of processor running. There's a lot of processor over here. I need to get that other computer fixed. It was definitely quieter. Back when he was still bright and sane, he was like a parent suffering from dementia. A parent who had taken care of her and ruffled her hair and told her how proud he was of what she was doing. Looking at the writer now, you would have never thought that he had once been a famous and beloved writer, but perhaps that's why he stayed in Kashmir. Everyone knew him here. Once the cleaning was done, she came to sit in front of him on the end table, where he sometimes kept his typewriter. He had a computer upstairs, a very nice one, but when he was in one of his sunnier moods, you would always find him banging away on that old typewriter as he worked on whatever he was writing at the moment. Winter had thought to check once or twice, but her hands always froze before she could open the cover of his latest work. She didn't know why, but she suspected it might have something to do with whatever power was within the man. She sat down now, smiling at him, as she took his hands, and she was glad when he lifted her head. When he lifted his head and looked at her blearily. Now, I want you to count back from 10 and tell me who you are with each repetition. 1. I am the writer. Good, good. Keep going. 2, I am the writer. 3, I am the writer. 4, I am the weaver of tales. 5, it is my hand that has crafted all you see. Okay, getting a little off track here. Let's bring it back to, but his voice rose above hers as he kept speaking. 6, I am he who writes the stories of Kashmir. 7, it is by my will that their story is told. 8, I am the architect of their loves and their suffering. 9, I am their chronicler. 10, I am their doom. As he reached 10, he slumped forward suddenly, and Pamela was afraid that something had happened to him. His hands gripped hers very tightly, but as they eased off and she heard the soft snuffle of his breath, she realized he had fallen asleep. He did this all the time, writing himself into a frenzy and then passing out once his energy was spent. Gods only knew how long he'd been roaming in the woods tonight, but he was safe now, and she took him upstairs to his bed and stripped him to his boxers before putting him under the covers. This was all done very clinically. She'd done it so many times before that it was almost habitual, and when she closed the door to his bedroom, he was snoring like a buzzsaw as he threatened to pull the curtains down with each inhale. Oh no! Well, Leia, I hope you feel better. That's a nasty tumble you took. She went to leave, meaning to get home before Maggie could worry. But then she noticed something against the magazines on the table. She'd cleaned it not too long ago, but only now did she realize what she had missed. It was a black book, leather-bound, and set with a Roman numeral, which she believed marked it as the 13th volume. She'd always been curious about his work, and now it appeared she might get a look at what he was working on. She opened the book to the end, thumbing past a few empty pages, and then she saw it. Dr. Winters said goodbye to her friends and brought the writer home. He was unsure of what was to come next for the savior of Kashmir, but he knew it would be a tale for the ages. She thumbed a few pages back and read about how she and her companions had closed the hole. She thumbed a few pages back more and read how the warden had come out of the prison as if called by some ethereal... Ugh, can't talk. Called by some ethereal being. She read about the problems going on within the garden. She read about the growing cough that seemed to be plaguing the man that she'd been speaking with not too long ago. And the further back she went, the more she read about things that the man would have no clue about. She read about how the lady of the garden had been missing and how her people had saved her. She read about Sheriff... She read about Sheriff Guthrie and his ghost problem. She would have read more, but the book seemed to stop just before the incident they'd had with the Green Man and the peace talks, and she was forced to wonder how he had known any of this. Hey, Nancy, we're glad you made it. Dr. Winters looked at the book, noticed the number again, and looked up the stairs towards the room across from the writer's bedroom. She'd never been in there. She didn't even know what was in there, but as she went slowly up the steps, she found that she wanted answers more than she was afraid of what she might find. Your actions have endangered everyone in this park. I don't know whether that still means anything to you or not, but it's not something I take lightly. Whatever bad blood you have with the Barker is through, do you understand me? I'll hear no more about any of this. Do I make myself clear? Sam was standing at the edge of the lily pond, though he'd put his back to the dressing down that the lady was giving Tobias. She had called for him after Sam made his report, and he'd come willingly enough. He didn't argue. He didn't fuss. He understood that what he had done was foolish, and he was more than willing to take the punishment for it. As I have said, I believe that my actions were in the best interest of those within the park. I know better now, and I've put my differences with the Barker aside. There was silence for a moment. The only noise was the splashing caused by Tobias's legs as he fidgeted slightly in the water. Well, I'm glad you waited till you were stopped, Nancy. That can be a little dangerous. Whew, goodness. I should hope so, Tobias. You're one of my most trusted followers, but I cannot have someone here who would undermine my authority in such a way. This is your last chance. If you act like this again, I will be forced to put you out. I don't want to. Such a thing would bring me no joy, but I see no way around it if you will not do as you're told. Let this be your last warning, and do not try my generosity again. He could hear the old goat bow, and then there was some splashing as he exited the pool. Sam watched him go, letting him get a little ways off before he turned and looked at the lady, who was still working in the lily pond. Do you think he was honest? Sam only shrugged. Who's to say? Some men only need to be told once, but others may need to have their noses slapped a time or two before it takes. I'll keep a close eye on him from now on, and we'll see if he backslides. Please do. Tobias is dear to me, but I don't want him to think that that means he can get away with bullying or exiling others. Please tell me this has not impacted the preparation for tomorrow's opening. Somehow it hasn't. It appears that we'll be able to open on time as we planned. If anything, it feels like this has helped us get everything we need in line for tomorrow's festivities. Fantastic. I won't have this holding up our preparations. Keep an eye on the situation, however. If you notice Tobias acting strangely, please let me know. I want to believe he's turned over a new leaf, but we can never really be sure. Ugh. Sam bowed and went to return to his duties. He would watch. He would make sure that Tobias's change of heart lasted. The lady was right. It was really no time to be messing with any of this. Yeah. Nice. Oh. Aw, I'm glad to hear that. It was really not the time for any of this. Winter would be swiftly upon them, and it always seemed like winter was when things really started to happen for them. He would hope for the best when it came to the He would hope for the best when it came to the Halloween celebration, though. He really was looking forward to seeing what the town made of this year's festivities. Okay. Sheriff Guthrie had them put him out a couple of blocks from the apartment, and it wasn't until he got out that he realized he was missing something. There was no Sheriff Masterson hanging over his shoulder anymore. The old man hadn't said anything since he had spoken to him at the pit, and Guthrie found himself spinning in a circle, looking for him like a dog chasing his tail. He was finally free, and all it had taken was getting rid of the hole in the woods. If I'd known that, I would have done it ages ago. Guthrie found himself practically skipping down the street. He was so light that he doubted he would ever feel like this again. It was like being a kid on the last day of school, knowing that you had the whole summer ahead of you. He didn't know what he would do now that his shadow was gone, but he knew that it would be better that he was leaving it behind. He could see the pulsing lights of his cruiser up ahead, and he was already looking forward to getting home and having a nice hot shower. He was sure he smelled sweaty, and his pants were full of burdocks and cockleburs, and he couldn't wait to get the stink of the woods off him. When someone came staggering out of those woods, Sheriff Guthrie had his riot gun pulled around quickly. He was still expecting to be set upon by some big nasty something, but when the woman fell to the concrete and lay still, he knew who it was before he ever even saw her. Her clothes were ripped to shreds, and she looked ready to drop, but it was the same woman he had seen going into the diner with Earl earlier that night. It was Candace, Earl's friend, and he put the gun behind his back as he came up to see if he could be of any help. She was unconscious, but mostly she just looked tired. He didn't think there was anything physically wrong with her, but it was hard to tell at first glance. "Hey, I need some help. Somebody help me." He heard boots coming up the sidewalk, and suddenly Parks and Woods were running towards him. He didn't know what they'd been doing out on the sidewalk, but they had been close enough that he believed they had probably been standing around, minding the crime scene. They came on the run, wanting to be of assistance. And Sheriff Guthrie was glad to see them. After the night he had had, he didn't think he'd be complaining about these his deputies for a very long time. Dr. Winters closed the door to the room after leaving the book inside. She could have used a little of her own forgetfulness at this point. The things she had seen in there would likely haunt her for some time to come. She wasn't entirely sure what to make of anything that she had read, and it made her look at the writer in a whole new light. Inside the room, there had been shelves lining the walls. There was nothing else in the room except for shelves and books, and Dr. Winters remembered thinking that it would have been a nice place to read. She always wanted a big library like that, a place to store her books and take in some comfortable perusing as she went about her day. One day, she might have the wherewithal to build her own library, but for now, all she could do was hope that if she had a library like that, it wouldn't be a place like the one she had just come from. There had been more than 13 books in there. There had been whole shelves detailing the history of the people of Kashmir. She had read stories about her clients, stories about her friends, stories about her siblings, and all of it clearly detailed in the books written by the half-mad writer. She'd closed the door and left after that, not sure what to make of any of this, but it seemed that the town knew the answer. The farther she got from the writer in his house, the less anxious she felt. By the time she got home, she'd forgotten what she was upset about and went in to see what Maggie was doing. The town guards its secrets almost as diligently as the townspeople do. Proximity itself is often a strange kind of magic, and it would take some time before Dr. Winters remembered what she had seen that night. The writer, however, would remember. Such was his duty and his curse. Guys, I think I'm going to call it there for tonight. I'm starting to lose my voice, and we've got a little bit left on the prologue. 2.5 hours of reading is quite a lot. So when you guys hear the prologue on the Halloween episode, you'll get a little bit of a treat, I suppose. Whew! Goodness. Go get checked over, Leia. That sounds really bad. I hope you're okay. Any rate, guys, I think that's going to do it for tonight. I will catch you guys next time, and I hope you guys have a spooky evening, and we'll have to do it again next week. So, till then, this is Dr. Plague signing off. You guys have a wonderful evening, and I hope you're all safe and doing well.